never start off these videos good. I don't expect. I always think, oh, this is gonna be real smooth, and then like I start the video and I'm like, what am I doing? So like not much has changed since like I've been trying to do videos or whatever, but like from a couple of years ago, it's just like now like I'm a lot more calmed down and like, you know, like now I realize that a lot of my thoughts that I talk about aren't necessarily my thoughts. They're just other people that I've like listened to, and now I'm just kind of like, it's being filtered through me, and it's obviously not like, it's a very diluted message a lot of the times, and I usually get a lot of things wrong. But now because of that, because I'm aware of that, it makes it more that I'm like trying to pursue the best message. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like I'm trying to like surround myself with the best, with something I find to be true, not something like, not like a toxic community or whatever. Like, it's just, I don't know. I'm getting off on a tangent, but I wanted to make this video about something else. So I wanted to talk about like Avatar or whatever, but I can get pretty distracted. So yeah, dude, I don't know what it is about Avatar. And like, I'm gonna try and connect a lot of things to like Catholicism, but like, I think there's something about Avatar that reminds me a lot of. I think that's why I enjoy it so much, because it reminds me of like my faith, right? And yeah, I guess I could play the game more like I'm saying, oh, you know, like Aang is Jesus or whatever, and the past avatars are like somehow God or whatever. And now he's now like the incarnate, the spirit world and like the physical world are colliding during the winter solstice. It's kind of the same thing with Mass. It's like the spirit world and the physical world, or it's like heaven on earth sort of thing during Mass. It's just, I get excited about this sort of stuff. It makes a lot of sense to me, you know? It's like, it doesn't like, I'm never gonna say it makes it true, because I do believe it's true, but it doesn't make it true just because I get really excited about it. I don't want people to mistake these videos for that. I just want people to be like open to the idea of like, I think there's patterns in the way people speak about things. You know, I don't know. I'm pretty sure the creators were not like too religious or like at all, but they did a lot of things that are just very. They a lot of the stories people tell like are, and I'm guessing the Bible kind of really fits into that pattern. They tell like a story that has like similar patterns. You know, it's like the hero's journey thing. It's like everybody knows how to employ it, but very few people know how to execute it, to actually follow through with it and make it really good. So like, there's a reason everybody loves Avatar, and like I think, like it's been done to death. People have explored it for years since it's come out. Like, why is it such a good show? And people have their reasons. But to me, I'm gonna kind of give like maybe like a little bit more. This isn't like extensive. This is just kind of like like right off the top of the dome. And there's gonna be things I forget about. But like, I don't mind making more videos about this because it's really exciting when I think of things. And it might not be that long either. But yeah, when I think of Avatar, I think it has a lot of parallels to like Christianity. And I think more specifically Catholicism, because like we think about things the same way they present them, and that's what I've noticed like recently. It's like very exciting to hear that sort of stuff, and yeah, it's something about like the non-physical world that interests us so much, you know, and even when there are stories about the physical world, like just like a killer, like a serial killer, whatever, like very realistic stories. I don't think it's necessarily that we're interested in like the physical stuff about it. We're more interested in, I think, the metaphysics of it. Even if you don't believe in anything outside of the physical realm, it's like there's something about what motivates people, what gets people going, that there's this like unanswered quality that you can like put a label on and like categorize it. But even now, when we're seeing people get upset with all these labels, like I think it speaks to a little bit more of like, no, you can't just reduce me to this thing. You can't just reduce. It's like there's something about what motivates people to kill another person. It's like, it's not just they want to like knife somebody, bring it out, and then like there's all these molecules and proteins like spilling out of this person, and that's just the way we see it. We obviously see it a certain way for a reason, and there's a lot of motivation that goes into that, right? It doesn't necessarily have to like tie to metaphysics, but it's just something about it just gets us interested in that, and you can describe it with like very naturalistic terms, but I want to keep it more on the metaphysical side when I can talk about Avatar. So like, that's kind of the first thing I kind of want to speak about with Avatar is just like the winter solstice episode, and just like the spirit world in general, right? It's like Aang is like the liaison, and I guess in Korra I think they kind of messed it up a little bit, but it kind of makes sense because like they made it pretty consistent, but I didn't like the full extent of what it meant. But I think it's maybe important too, like that Korra did that, because then I think if anything, it reflects even more, right? How people think of Christianity or Catholicism. So during the winter solstice, like essentially like the spirit world, right, and the physical world, they collide. Like they get closer. The line gets more blurred essentially, and I love the idea of that because it was such a beautiful way to present it to us, and it's just this like these spirit animals or spirit creatures can like come into the physical world and like wreak havoc, and it's just yeah, people can be brought into the spirit world and like they have to get back out, that sort of a thing. And I don't know why they chose the winter solstice as like what makes it might have been arbitrary, but I'm sure there's a reason because Avatar always has a reason, even if the creators aren't aware of it. But it's such a good way because it's an event. Do you know what I'm saying? Like it's not this thing that's just like, oh, you know, just sometimes I feel like it. Like for Aang, it can kind of be that way, but like it's an event, you know, sort of a thing. And with Aang, he can not with Aang, but like with the winter solstice, same thing with like mass. It's like that's the idea. It's like the Catholicism claims that heaven and earth are colliding. Like it's heaven on earth, sort of an idea, right? Whereas like I think other Christians are it's more like, well, heaven's afterwards, you know, sort of a thing. Maybe you can get a taste of it during like prayer or something, but like heaven is afterlife. And I think that's why Catholics like. I'm not saying other people value life less, but that's why we embrace so much of it. Even if some Catholics can be pretty prudish and like this huge like purity, this huge purity campaign and kind of get uncomfortable. That's not the way you're supposed to do it. The way you're supposed to look at it is like what was created was good. It's just, you know, sometimes we don't do things correctly, and then you get like K-Bai trying to mess everything up in the stealing socket and stuff like that, right? But yeah, when heaven and earth like come together, it's I'm sorry, that's not the part I was on. I was talking about the part. That's why we embrace like life so much. It's something about like there's nothing not good, but things need to be in the proper context. That's why we say things like certain things should be only within like marriage or only within the priesthood, or like things need restrictions for you to be as free as you can be to essentially like attain your pure self, like your best self or whatever, like the best self. That's what they call it. So that's why we have restrictions like certain things should only be done in marriage, or certain things should only be brought up in marriage. Bonds shouldn't be broken, that sort of thing. And we embrace so much of like life sort of thing, or our existence, because we don't think of heaven as like this thing that we go to afterwards, which you do, this place that you go to afterwards, but it's also like it's here. It's always pretty much here. Like mass is always going on somewhere, and it's like it's that idea where it's colliding, right? And it's kind of the same thing that Roku told Aang. It's like I'll always be with you. It's like you'll be able to reach me, sort of a thing. And he's like, how can I talk to you? Like, when I need to, because I can't come back to the Fire Nation every time. You're going to destroy this temple. The winter solstice isn't going to be here for, like, another year. And, like, I need to, like you said, I need to defeat the Fire Lord by the end of the summer if the world isn't, like, if we don't want the world to end. And I fucking love the stakes. Just, he gets so excited talking about this. But, yeah, it's, like, it's essentially like that, where, Roku's always there with him. That's kind of the way Catholics see heaven too. It's like, dude, this kind of makes it look like I'm in like some, right? This is the way Catholics see heaven. It's just like if you go to mass, it's heaven on earth. Like it's boring. I get it sometimes for people, but it's like if you truly understand what's going on, and you can like internalize that sort of a thing, or like you understand why we do everything that we do, you can understand. Oh, well, this is what they mean by when we describe heaven. It's beautiful. Like it's pretty cool. And then you can sit there and like ridicule things and point things out, like why would you do this? Why? But if you truly like read the scriptures and understand like why Catholics do what they do, like you can say, oh, this is a pretty good depiction of what heaven is supposed to look like. This is kind of what they're describing in the Bible. Even if you don't believe it, this is a pretty accurate representation of like what like it's supposed to be like. And that's why we mean like it's heaven on earth. It's like the like what is it, like the doors at hand? Like it's Jesus says it, kind of a thing where it's right around the corner. It's like it's pretty much here. It's like it's very attainable. It's like you're experiencing it, right? Sort of a thing. And if you're not, it's like it's not that you don't believe enough. It's just like, how can I describe it? And it's fucked up to say that you don't understand it well enough. It's more just it's more of like once you recognize it, it's sort of like with like information. Like once you get the hang of it, it can get really exciting to like, it's something you can like pursue and you can like, oh, I understand what they mean by this. Like at first it was frustrating, I couldn't really get it, but now I understand it. Once you fully understand it, then like yeah, be open to be critical about it, all that sort of stuff. But you know, the idea of like heaven always kind of being available for like Catholics, it's like one, we do have prayers, like that's kind of like the idea too, and then also you have mass, and then you have like a bunch of the other sacraments, sort of a thing. And that's kind of the same thing Aang does when he goes into like the Avatar state. He does like, it's a little bit more influenced by like Buddhism sort of thing, but I think it's the same sort of thing with Buddhism. Like a lot of these religions has pretty similar parallels where I think just like Catholicism has a little bit more of a complete, because it doesn't like fall apart a little bit like as like it goes infinite, and it doesn't like fall apart in my opinion. But it's sort of the same thing where Aang kind of goes into like this sort of like prayer where yes, he's in the physical realm, like he's in the spiritual world, but he's kind of not, sort of a thing. But he kind of is. You know, he can't use his bending. He's there. He can experience things with people, and he's prayer. It's like he's speaking with the people of that world. It's such a fantastic representation of like I think what Catholics would see when they think of prayer. You know, that's kind of like what you should not experience, because like it's kind of like it's obviously not going to be that tangible and like visual when you pray, but it's like I think this is why so many of the saints and so many priests and Catholics that are devout they talk about prayer in such a high regard, because it's almost like that. You don't get to see what Jesus looks like or something. You don't get to see etc., and those testimonies I don't really think much about them, but it's like it's in that same sense. It's sort of like a good telling of what that kind of means. Is like you get to speak with these people, you get to speak with some of the saints, you get to speak with Mary, you get to speak with Jesus, you get to speak with God. It's like it's an insane privilege, right? And I don't think there's like an ultimate God in the spirit world, but there's some very powerful people, you know, like we have the archangels, we have the angels, we have saints. Like it's just you have this whole array of people in heaven wanting like, you know, like the best for you. Just if you communicate with them, it's kind of what Aang taps into, you know, when he finds Roku, when he talks to Avatar Kyoshi, when he talks to any of the avatars of the past, and he talks to Ko helped him, like somebody that could have stolen his face and could have like, you know what I'm saying, like I never got why Ko helped him. Like that was kind of weird, right? It's like it doesn't make sense, because Ko could very much steal your face, and I guess it's just more of an opportunity. But maybe that's sort of the thing, like with like the devil, I can't really tell like what I would do to describe how I would describe Ko as. But Ko is very helpful, but at the same time pretty malicious. It's very dangerous. So, yeah, Ko's very dangerous, and with Avatar, it's like it's kind of that. But there's not. I don't think there's like an ultimate like person in the spirit realm. Because they don't look at like the avatars like they see the avatar and they're just like, what's up, dude? You're here again. It's been a couple of hundreds of years or whatever, so I guess it's good to see you, but you're probably here to like harm us like you did back in the day. And I kind of get excited about that sort of stuff. You know, it's a pretty good depiction of what the way is in the way like Catholics see prayer and the Catholics see like mass. It's like these things are colliding, and it's not this idea of like, oh, we need to wait till we die to experience heaven, or we need to wait till the winter solstice to be able to talk to Avatar Roku. No, it's like it's here. It's like I'll always be here. I want you to open the door. And like I think Bishop Barron speaks about this, and I'm kind of watching one of his sermons right now. Like he speaks about this frequently. It's like no, it's like there's all these books about like man's quest for God. Rather, it's in the Bible. That's not the story. It's the story of like God's quest for man. Like he wants us, but we need to be open, like willing to like open the door for him, sort of a thing. You know, people try and go pursue God, sort of a thing, but that's not like how it works. You know, it's supposed to be like he's it's overbearing. He's there. He wants to like communicate, sort of a thing with that sort of a thing with you, and with Roku, he wants to speak with Aang. Like he wants to give him that guidance, but Aang has to be open to not praying, but like, yeah, getting in like the state of mind to be open to receiving it. And the more he does it, the more he can speak with these past avatars, right? Like it was right before, it was during Sosa's comment, like the first part where he was like speaking with the different avatars, where Aang was talking to Momo because he's like, what the heck am I supposed to do? And then he's like, I wish I could talk to Roku. He's like, oh wait, I can't talk to Roku. And then he summons Roku somehow, and then Roku's like, yes, I'm always with you, Aang, you know that. And then because he's gotten so like in tune with that, he can now speak to Avatar Kyoshi, the avatar with the bear on his head. I forget what his name is. And then Avatar Chang, something like that, or Yang. And it's that sort of idea where it's like, that's kind of how prayer works. It's like the better you get at it, and look, you can still call it delusional and not believe in it, but that's just how it works. That's just how human beings work. That's how their minds work. They get better at things, right? And they feel like they're more in, like it's like if a kid had a bunch of teddy bears. So you talk to one teddy bear, and the more he speaks to this one, the more real every one of them becomes. And like I know that's a little bit reductive and insulting to the faith, but it's like if you don't believe in the faith, that's kind of the way you see it, and you can kind of see like what I'm talking about with here. But if it's the truth, then I think it doesn't matter if that's the way you describe it, because it makes sense. There's a reason that makes sense. There's a reason that I think that works, right? It's not just by accident. It's like this mechanism works, especially, and it's like it's the perfection of working when you do it in the right context. And in my opinion, it's like when you're praying, when you're talking to God, sort of a thing. It's like, yeah, it's the same sort of idea, but it's the perfection of it isn't doing it with teddy bears or isn't doing it with like a sport or some sort of thing, information. It's when you're speaking to God, sort of a thing, right? And Aang does this with the spirit world, you know? He gets better at the elements because through speaking with Avatar Roku, through experiencing the Avatar state, he gets better at these. He wasn't even a waterbender, and he could waterbend in the first episode because he went into the Avatar state, sort of thing. But he didn't firebend, he didn't earthbend. Oh, there wasn't anything to earthbend. But he, you know, it all worked, you know, sort of thing. It all worked through him. And it wasn't necessarily that they was like in this one area, like these all worked together, and the perfection of it was when he was in his Avatar state, because he could summon all those things, and everything that he was possibly capable of could be done through him in those moments. And then now he could see, oh, I can actually do all this stuff. Now I can pursue it like in a I'm getting off. I just get real excited about Avatar. I can pursue it in a very in a more disciplined fashion, right? So he couldn't, like as an Avatar, he couldn't earthbend, he couldn't lava bend like they do in like Toph does, or like they do in well, maybe he could lava bend. He did one time. He did lava bend that one time during the winter solstice. The Avatar Roku was destroying the temple. That's pretty cool, right? But he could never metal bend like Toph did. I think that was just something he needed to be able to like obtain, and then he could pass it down to like the next Avatar sort of thing. So it's like any quality that is like the person you pray to, or the God or whatever, right, can be given to you as like a perfection of yourself, sort of thing. So that's why I love this show so much. It's very Catholic. It's very in tune with the ideas of Christianity, because it fulfills it. It's like it makes sense. It's like everything human beings do. It does it well, but it does the perfection of it, sort of thing. So yes, people get better at doing things. So what? What are you gonna do with that in the show, right? Like, what are you gonna use? How are you gonna use that mechanism in the show? You can have him talk to the avatars. You can have him practice the elements. And then once I've been my tongue, once it gets to the point of he needs to face the Fire Lord, all that needs to be able to be accessible to him, because he's built it up, sort of thing, right? So yeah, that's not my whole spiel about like why him talking to the avatars the past avatars in like the spiritual world or whatever, entering the spiritual world is very similar to what like Catholicism is like, in the sense of like heaven on earth. You're speaking to God, you're getting better at it, and then you pray to the saints so they can pray on your behalf, and it's like all these people are rooting for you. And it's not just these people, right? He's not just communicating with like earthbenders or just waterbenders or just airbenders. He's communicating with the people who are the most powerful on earth at their time, and all of them are working within him. Do you understand what that means? It's not like if Katara could help him out, that'd be dope. But if you could like summon like Katara or like Avatar Aang, like as somebody who could help you out, it'd probably be Avatar Aang that you would choose, even though she was like a very like she mastered waterbending. Well, he did too, but then he also mastered earth. He did what like Iroh said, is like he didn't make like the Avatar doesn't like naturally can't be stale in like in the way they conduct themselves, because it's like they use all the elements that work together and learn from each other, sort of a thing. So the same thing with like the saints and the angels, the archangels, and God, Mary. It's you have the holiest people who have ever lived, the strongest willed people the most disciplined people that have ever lived, that have accomplished what you've wanted to accomplish like in thousands of lifetimes, and they're all working for you. They're all working with you to bring you to that sort of like level 2. Like it's just they want that for you. Like of course they want you to fulfill yourself. It's like that's what makes sense to them. And some of the most powerful prayers that move the mountains, you get to communicate with these people as a Catholic and as a person, just as a person, and have that. Even if you don't believe in it, like that's a very powerful idea as a human being, right? And even like I'm saying, if you don't believe in it, that's fine. But like the concept of that idea is important, right? It's the same sense of when you have you have a huge family or whatever, and they all have your back, right? You know what it's like to be lonely and not have anybody fighting for you, but you also know what it's like to have a team of like some of this, like this A team of just crazy winners, and like they help you become more a part of that team the more time you spend with them. So it's the same sort of idea, but just a bigger perfection, of like a more perfect perfection of it or whatever. So I love Avatar. And I'm sure you can do this with any show. Definitely do this with any show. But like that's what I love about stories, is that you can see a lot of what people want, right? And especially this show, it's a little bit more explicit about it. Some of them are a little bit more hidden. You have to kind of search for it. But that's essentially, you can kind of see a lot of what people want and the way they speak about things. And Avatar does that beautifully. It gets prayer right. It doesn't get like heaven completely right, but it gets like the spiritual world, like in a sense, like the past Avatar is pretty good in that regard. And it gets the idea of like sin right too, because when he's meeting up with the guru, essentially a part of Aang has to die. And this is just a human concept too. A part of Aang has to kind of die, but like let go in a sense, right? For him to not have his chakras locked up, for him to be everything he has, everything he needs to be himself, to be the Avatar. He can't be the Avatar, so essentially himself, who he is, right? Because a person can pretend, and like nobody. It's pretty difficult for Peter to notice if that's true who they're supposed to be. But if the Avatar, it's like so obvious he can't get into the Avatar state. Why? Because he isn't being who he needs to be. Like parts of him haven't died enough, or haven't like been put to rest. That haven't been put to rest at all, to the point where like it won't let him be what he actually is. It won't let him be the Avatar. Like, yes, he doesn't always need to be in the Avatar state, but if he can't get into the Avatar state, he's pretty much, he's almost not like him, like he's not the Avatar then. Like what are you even? Like you're almost as useless as anybody else. Yeah, you can move the other elements, but the ultimate perfection of like the ultimate of what you should be is the Avatar, and getting into the Avatar state too. and parts of him has to die, like letting go of Katara for him to, and it's painful and it seems almost unnecessary, but it has to make sense at one point for him to actually enter the Avatar state and do that, right? And only if he lets go of her, then he can actually, like, I don't know, I guess have her in a sort of a way. It just there's a certain like way people, like, those truths need to be revealed, and it can be found on your own, but like a lot of times people can show you a lot of things about yourself that otherwise you would not have found out, and like the Saints, and it's the perfection of who you're supposed to be. It's who you're supposed to be. Not what you think you're supposed to be, not what other people think you're supposed to be, but what you're actually supposed to be. Everybody can hate the Avatar, but no doubt the Avatar has to be able to get into the Avatar state. If he can't get into the Avatar state, then he isn't what he is. Like, they aren't who they're supposed to be. Korra isn't who she's supposed to be. Avatar isn't what they're supposed to be if they can't do that part of themselves. So yeah, there's probably more I can talk about with Avatar, because it's like an insanely it's a very deep piece, I would say, but there's just like, that's why I think people find it so intriguing, because it makes sense. It's like it brings a lot of like Catholic concepts to people, and makes it very enjoyable, honestly, because that's just the way like life's lived. But all right, deuces.